Thank you, Mary Jean, for that beautiful introduction. Thank you to everyone else behind those scenes at Awakening Spirituality that's making this possible and holding it all together. Thank you to all of you who are taking time out of your very busy lives, especially this time of year when everything seems to accelerate, to join us for an hour of conversation and exploration and just a time to come together around a really interesting topic. And before we really get started, I'd like you to kind of settle in and perhaps enter into chat where you are on the planet, and particularly if you have a kind of land acknowledgement that you like to do, or you're in traditional territories. I'm speaking to you from the Great Lakes territory, and I always feel deeply grateful to be able to acknowledge the land that I'm on and the territory that I inhabit. This is the Haldeman Tract. It was originally promised to the Six Nations of the Grand River and is the traditional homelands of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Neutral peoples. And if you know who the Earth Keepers were in your part of the world, by all means, go ahead and add that into chat, and we'll have that moment of gratitude together. So as Mary Jean said, this is the Spiritual Life Writing Group. We have been going for a year plus, and we'll be making some interesting changes in 2022 to kind of build community, build momentum. And so if you have questions and interests that you really want to explore, please reach out to us, because we really would like to build around the kinds of questions that come up for writers when we're trying to talk about spirituality. It's kind of a tricky topic in certain corners of the world, and we're trying to make it okay to bring that forward, and at least not to exclude it from writing. So life writing, I would like to say, is an integrative way of uniting memory and experience. Spiritual life writing invites the whole self in. Memory and experience, fact and feeling, and imagination, the profane and the sacred. So these monthly sessions that we hold are here to help you find your authentic voice and to shed whatever fears make you hold your tongue. And welcome to our December solstice session, the closest we can get to solstice, where we decided a good way to kind of ease out at this darkening time of the year and close to the end of the calendar is to listen to the soft animal of our body, and Mary Oliver speak, and to ask how this can serve the writing process. And our guest is Pam Johnson. Pam, if you can give a wave so people can see you. She will help us access the wisdom of the body and turn to it as a valuable resource in our whole creative exploration. And we'll do more on the body and writing next year as well. And in fact, before I introduce Pam formally, I just want to say this is a really important topic for writers to think about body and writing together and connected, and how connected they are, as opposed to kind of lapsing into the conventional thinking that we're just in our heads when we're writing. So Pam Johnson is a seeker, a somatic coach, writer, and nature lover based in her native Alberta. She has been exploring creative, breath, and movement practices for over 3 decades and is currently immersed in somatic therapy training. She will explain to us what that means. And you can find her writing in Body and Soul, the collection that I edited, and in her memoir, which we're hoping comes out into the world before long, Magpies. So Pam, welcome. Are you unmuted now?
I am. Thank you, Susan.
So good of you to join us. Thank you for dropping everything and making this happen. It's really an honor to have you here.
Oh, it's a real privilege to be here. So thank you.
So you and I go back a few years together and kind of get into some of those interesting pieces of history in a minute. But I want to ask you first, the title that we use for this session is When the Body Feels Safe. And just talk to us about what does that phrase suggest to you? Why is that an important way of framing things? When the body feels safe, what does that mean?
Yeah, well, I think it means a few different things, but in particular, the lens that I'm looking at it from right now is a somatic lens. So the felt sense experience in the body, and when there is a sense of safety, basically, to be really simple about it, our nervous system, I think, allows us to be more receptive. So, I think sometimes about approaching life with a strategic mind. So, the to-do list, and oftentimes we do, have to have that strategic mind engaged to get things done. What I noticed for myself is that if that strategic mind is too much online, especially when I'm approaching creative things, it can almost give a sense of rigidity. So I think that the safety and the creativity, the exploration, they go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's interesting. So you have also what I would call a very integrative approach, right? So when you talk about receptivity and creativity, it is bigger than writing for you, right? Writing is one
Yeah.
component in there, but you're really exploring receptivity in life in general, which for a spiritual life is absolutely, absolutely critical, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And I think of creative practices. So creative practices that do ultimately, lend themselves to coming back to the page. But yeah, I think it's that you point out make a really good point in that I think of it as how do I live a creatively open and receptive life, and sometimes I have more success at that than other times, for sure. We're all on the road, but yeah, I definitely do think of it as a way to approach life.
Okay, that's really interesting. I think that's one of the things that I really like about your approach. It's not segmented or siloed. It's very integrated, and I've seen you do a lot of things over the years. So, can you just explain for us for a second, define what a somatic approach is, or what somatic therapy is? You're in that
Mhm.
training now. Just walk us through what that means.
Yeah, well, really, somatic, the root of that word soma, it's a Greek word, and it really speaks to the felt, lived experience in the body. So another way to say that might be trusting the wisdom of the body, really listening to the body, and slowing things down so that we can be really present with what sensations or images or feelings come up. And one way of describing somatic therapy is that in somatic practices, we make the invisible visible. So things that, sometimes I think in our daily lives, it's really easy for us to override some of our impulses. And, I think it's not new that we have neurons in, so we have the heart mind, and we have the gut mind, and of course we have the mind that we all think of as our brain mind. And there's information that is, traveling both ways constantly. And I think that in somatic therapy, it's really about slowing things down, making sure that people feel safe in their body in order to slow things down and explore what might be actually unprocessed. So whether that be, a big T trauma experience or small T trauma, certainly a somatic approach is really making sure that you feel comfortable in the body, and that it's a very gentle and measured approach to what might want to have completion in terms of some energy that might be even sort of stuck in the body.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, so So one question I have for you is, did you find your way towards all these embodied practices because you just were automatically attracted to all those things, or would you say you came from a place of searching because there was a history, or things were problematic, or just talk to us a bit about finding your way towards these embodied practices. I think it would be helpful to hear that.
Mm. Yeah, no, it was following curiosity and sometimes following frustration. So I've had a Qigong practice for a number of years, and I started that when I was living in Toronto, and just happened to be living down the street from a park where some people I knew gathered, and I started working with this Qigong teacher, and mostly because I was just so frustrated with my acting career, and it was really interesting because, you know, I think at that time I thought, oh, I'm very aware, I'm very body aware, and it was like, oh, are you kidding? You have no clue. So I think that for me, I'm more of I love to move. I danced as a young child, and I run and I hike, and so for me, movement is just a really important way, frankly, of feeling centered and also connected. And so I certainly in my life have just sought out different ways to move, and was very, very lucky, in particular in Toronto, of working with this Qigong teacher that opened my mind and really helped me to become more grounded in my body. Because certainly for me, I have this sort of tendency of rising energy. So things that ground me, I gravitate towards.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the piece that you wrote in Body and Soul Second Chakra focuses on a particular exploration with the Qigong teacher as well. I don't know if you can read to us from that part or not at some point, but that was a really interesting window, I thought, into what it's like to actually be in conversation about what the body is experiencing and what you're running into, and where curiosity and frustration, as you say, kind of meet. You know, like here's a block of some sort, and what to do with it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that, you know, especially with the Qigong practice, you know, there were things that I, you know, didn't even know, tensions I didn't even know I was holding in my body. And I had been doing yoga for a number of years at that time as well. But it was really the very conscious, mindful breath work and movement, really slowing those things down, that you know, opened up a number of things, I would say, both personally and creatively.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's interesting, and I feel like you are a real voice for that, to help give people permission to explore that, the whole field of where creativity can take you. So of course you also have a complex history. I mean, I know, right? Any time we're talking to a group of writers, people have a complex history, right? They come to it with complex motivations. There's a level of drivenness, there's a level of need, there's a level of excitement around what needs to be embodied. So just talk to us a bit about where writing fits into all this for you. Like you came to work with me on a particular story, and your own story. So just talk to us a bit about that, and some of the complications there, because I think that would be really helpful to hear that.
Yeah, well, I think that you know, I was really looking, when I started to work with you, I was really looking to find a way to put sort of these puzzle pieces of this piece that I was working on together. And I actually read a really wonderful passage in Dan Siegel's book, Mindsight. And he talked about the fact that for certain kind of personalities, especially if there's a lot of emotion present, and that's sort of more of the right hemisphere, that dipping into the left hemisphere, where of course language comes from. The integration of those two things can be really helpful. So it's that saying of name it to tame it. And he talked about the writing process as actually being one way to do that. And that certainly has been my experience, that, I'm sure like many writers, like oftentimes it isn't until I'm writing that I actually can make those connections or put those pieces together. And when I read that in his book about like how it actually helps to calm the nervous system down, to name it, I thought, oh, right, okay, that completely makes sense to me, because that's been my experience. So I'm not sure if that speaks to the complexity that you're pointing to, but was there something more there, Susan?
Yeah. Well, Pam, it's never safe to talk to me, so you never know where we'll go. Well, okay. So part of what I found really interesting in working with you and your story, and is you were talking about it really an intergenerational story, right? Family story, and lots to do with bodies and embodiment, and sort of family secrets or family prohibitions around just talking about that or coming forward. And I would say like I'm sure I could point to several people here tonight, you were the child in the family who watched, you were the observer and the sensitive child who took it all in, and who found language for it and was willing to become, I would say, the transgressor who would take that story public and explore it publicly, right? And I feel like in spiritual life writing, this happens up over and over and over. There is someone who's a carrier of the story, right? The family story, they're deeply connected to it in a way that even siblings might not be connected to it. So I would just like to hear you talk a bit about that.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that, for me, I felt like I had to explore, especially after my father died. And I had a complex relationship with him, and he was someone who struggled in his life to be authentic with his identity. He was a gay man who grew up at a time where that wasn't acceptable. So talk about denying the body. And, so I certainly experienced as a young person confusion, because there was a lot of I didn't know the truth of that until I was a teenager. So in the writing through of the memoir, I just, I didn't necessarily know what it was that I needed to explore, but I knew that I needed to explore something around my relationship with my Qigong practice and with my mindfulness practice, and how that helped me to have sort of a new understanding of things that frankly I was holding in my body that I didn't even realize that I had, inherited from the family and from those dynamics. And so that certainly came up when I was working with my Qigong teacher, and it really surprised me. And then, as I continued to sort of explore the writing of it, I also realized, okay, well, gosh, not only do I have to explore what my father's experience was, but then how does that, like, what about my own experience and my own experience with my body and my own experience with, as you brought up this second chakra piece, the second chakra is all about creativity and sexuality. And so how do I understand that from the place as an adult where, certainly as a younger person, I had no purchase on any of that, how that actually, landed in my lived experience.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's really interesting. And I think when we get to the Q&A, just the open session, I'll be really interested. I hope other people feel comfortable in sharing some of these kinds of questions, because I think that combination that you're talking about of bringing your experience of bodily practice together with writing practice, and you need to kind of both sets of tools, really.
Yes.
Yeah, to explore yourself, to explore the family, the story. Like there was a lot of complex pieces you were putting together and trying to bring to light, right? That's always kind of what we're interested in too, is how do you bring this to light, or how do you bring this forward and then build on that awareness and that consciousness. So
yeah, it's not always popular.
What? You were suddenly the family favorite after divulging exploring all the family secrets. What a shock! What a shock! What a shock! Yeah, so it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Right, when one person does that work in a family, it sets off the domino effect, right?
Yeah, and I think, I mean, this is maybe a whole other topic, but I think that for me too, there was an identity, which frankly, I feel like I'm only now at this stage of my life, like really trying to continue to put down, which is like the fixer, right? Like the fixer identity. And I've got to like heal my family's wounds, and that's not helpful a lot of the time, I would say.
Newsflash, not always helpful.
Not always helpful.
Exactly. Okay. Beautiful. That's beautiful. Okay. So did you bring something with you to read? Are you going to share a reading with us?
I did. And, I was going to read something different than the second chakra piece, but maybe since we're talking about it, I will read that.
Okay. I'd love that.
Yeah.
And then we'll go into the writing and the whole writing exercise. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So, so this is somewhat of an edited piece of the second chakra, which is in Body and Soul, thanks to the goddess Susan Scott, editor. So, all right, I'll just start with that. Vic sat cross-legged beneath the window. Outside, the light was dim. Upstairs, tenants were walking on the creaking floorboards. I felt the hardness of the wooden floor beneath me. Vic began his slow, deliberate speech. You've shown real dedication in the past 3 months, Pam. At first, I didn't think you'd last. His voice was steady, clear. I sensed there was something significant about this lesson. Next step, lie on my back for deep breathing exercises. Focus your attention, Vic said, on the sensations in your body. I began with my feet, gradually moving up my calves and thighs until I reached my hips. Almost immediately, I felt an intense desire to wail. Vic's voice was steady, reassuring. Breathe into your lower abdomen and hips, Pam. I felt a concentration of energy in my left hip. Tears welled beneath my eyelids. My head felt like it was moving away from my body, and there was a heavy feeling, as if my abdomen and hips were filled with silt, as if my sacrum was draped in heavy sand while my head bobbed out at sea. On top of that, it felt like something essential was missing. My lower abdomen and womb felt void, empty. I felt a catch in my throat and sternum. A wave of emotion ripped towards my heart. I wanted to get up and run, to stop the breathing, to leave whatever this was behind. My right leg began to shake, my ears pooled with tears. Vic's voice cut through the sensation. He reminded me I was safe and to focus on my belly, to breathe, to feel the rise and fall of my breath. I know this is difficult, Pam, but keep coming back to your breath. I took several minutes to settle. Vic quietly spoke about the energetic movements I had just experienced. Your sacrum and pelvis, your second chakra, is dull. It's been numbed over the years, but it's gradually coming back to life. You'll notice dull pain as the sensation comes back into your body. We talked about the energy of my second chakra, my patterns around creativity, relationships, sexuality, the fact that I hadn't fully explored these areas in my life. We also talked about my dad's struggle with his sexuality, the shame he'd felt being a gay man in a time that that could not be openly acknowledged. Unknowingly, unwittingly, I'd inherited that shame. You're energetically sensitive, Pam. You would have picked up on your father's feelings at a young age. I sat very still on the cool wooden floor. There's a power in your creative center which you are not using. It's time to stop holding on to something energetically that isn't yours. As I left Vic's house and stepped into the crisp fall air, I felt both more in my body and more apart from it, trying to comprehend what the breath had revealed.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for that. It's really beautifully read too, beautifully delivered. And it's really striking knowing you as a person, what you went through in that journey and where you are now in terms of really embracing your creativity. So I just feel like you've given the whole room permission to do some really important exploring. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So you are going to lead us in, oops, I need to figure out how to do screen share. You want to set this up for us?
Sure. Yeah. So, so we'll start actually with the quote, and what we'll do is we're going to just take the next few minutes to explore some body sensations and then some writing afterwards. So one thing that I'd really love to encourage everyone is to please just approach this with the mindset of kind observation. We're certainly not trying to make anything happen or get anything right or anything like that. We're just exploring. And for some, this may be familiar, and for others, it may be new. Please take care of yourselves. You know, we'll slow things down and really tune into what's present in the body. And for some people, that's not always a safe place. So please just at any time, if you feel like you need to take a break, you know, please do so. And if you could have a pen and notebook handy, we will do a short writing exercise after the guided exploration. So we'll just start with the Mary Oliver quote from Wild Geese. Speaking of permission, you do not have to be good. You do not have to walk through the desert for 100 miles on your knees repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. So to get to the soft animal of our body, I'd love to just invite you to just start with grounding and landing. So if it feels safe to do so, you can close your eyes. If you'd like to turn your video off, please feel free to do that. Make yourself comfortable. So I'd like to ask you to just feel your feet on the ground and feel your seat in your chair. And let's just take 1 or 2 breaths. Let's just allow the breath to be where it is in the body. And could you notice 2 sensations in your body? And also, could you notice 2 sounds? Sound perhaps in the room, sound out of the room. Just take a moment to ground and transition. So we'll start with a short guided exploration around an image that helps you to feel connected to self, to spirit. So if there's a memory that comes to mind, or an image from nature or from music, a pet, a person, just slowly tune in and just notice what you notice. Just notice if there is an image that comes to mind, what colors do you see? What's the temperature? What are perhaps some sounds that are associated with that image? keep breathing throughout these whole explorations. And as you're tuning into that image, what are you noticing in your body? There's no right or wrong. Everything's welcome here. Just notice what you notice. So that's just a very, very small taste of connecting into something that could be a touchstone or a resource that you could come back to, maybe even explore more at another time. That idea that hopefully there's something that came to you that was soothing or that helped you remember that connection. And now we'll go a little bit deeper into another exploration. And we're going to look at and feel into this question of, at this time, especially in the Northern Hemisphere of darkness, we're moving into solstice, this very dark, fruitful darkness type of time of year. What wants to emerge into the light? So this question, what wants to emerge into the light? So again, I just invite you to close your eyes again. Tune into your body. And as you sit with this question, what are some of the sensations that you notice? Perhaps there's energy or tingling. Again, there might be a color or a flavor or a texture somewhere in the body. There may be another image that's coming to mind about something that wants to emerge into the light. Or perhaps you might be noticing an impulse to move. Please feel free to do that. Perhaps there's a gesture, maybe with your hand, that you could amplify. Just play with that for a moment. See what it might reveal to you. What are some of the feelings that you notice? Where's your breath now? Again, there's no right or wrong. Just notice what you notice here. And so we'll very gently come out of this very short exploration. And I'd invite you to open your eyes if they're not already open, and just take a look around the room. And then, certainly move a little if you need to. And we'll transition into a very short writing exercise based on what you've just explored. So what did that soft animal of your body whisper or yell at you possibly? There's something that bubbled up that you want to keep exploring, images or feelings. And what meaning or information might this have for you at this time? So we'll just do a short few minutes of writing around anything that came up for you that you want to explore further. Maybe we'll just take about a minute longer. Maybe just jot down a few last thoughts that you might come back to later. I know it's a very fast exploration, but we'll leave it there for now.
Thank you. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So you have a beautiful way of framing all of this, the journey, the invitation, the journey, focus, permission, right? And the invitation to go deeper and deeper.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like this is, yeah. Do you want to say anything about this? This is really, really quite beautiful.
Well, what I notice is that it it's just a touch, right? It's just a seed of, or a thread, and I think that what I've experienced is sometimes there's just like a little thread that shows itself, and then, once I start to explore that thread, well, maybe there might be another little thread, or that's actually going to lead me, it feels like it's all a bit of a mysterious process at times, but, there's like that little thing that if I follow it is going to lead me to this other thing. And I think that, if we really slow things down, there's so much information, all around, whether that be, input from nature or from things in our outer world, but also really, how do we just really slow things down to start to just be curious about what's there? And once we're curious about what's there, it changes. I'm, maybe we'll hear from other people if there are things, that they started with, that then, something changed as they added a body movement, or as they, went deeper into an image. So it feels like it's just, threads to explore.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, yeah, lots came up for me too. I could talk with you about this all night. So, so a couple of things. We because we'll turn off the recording in a moment. So this will be encapsulated and put on the Awakening Spirituality website. And there will also, I guess I need to show this. There are two slides. Let me just go back to the slides for a moment. And then just to give people the share, just to speak a bit about, so we know that this is all in part of the recording. So these are some of the resources that you'll, do you want to say a word or two about these resources, why these are recommended readings?
Sure. Yeah, sure. So some of those readings are really about, like the Bessel van der Kolk. He is someone who's certainly a leader in somatic exploration, and that book, The Body Keeps Score, apparently I think it was like one of the top nonfiction books that was read during COVID. I am just only now starting to read it. There are many books that talk about the wisdom of the body. The Body Has Its Reasons. The Therese Bertrat book was one that I first came in contact with many, many years ago with a movement teacher who's on the coast, Judith Koltai. So that's a really interesting sort of early exploration, I would say earlier exploration, around, sort of stress on the body. And then some of the other books as well, the Bill Plotkin's books, that's Animas Valley Institute. And those books are really wonderful in terms of the connection between nature and the psyche. And his work is really fantastic. And yeah, thank you. There's the website there, Animas Valley. They have amazing programs in terms of exploring, you know, the wild and the inner wild and the external wild, and our relationship with an animate world.
And you've done some Vision Quest work with them as well.
Yeah, I've done actually a number of programs. They have a wonderful program called Writing the Wild Soul, which was actually the first time I encountered them. And I just thought, oh my gosh, who are these people? They're just amazing. And I did a quest in 2018 with them. And yeah, we were out on the land for 11 days and, you know, just disconnected from the busyness of the world and the things that, again, you know, the sensations and the things that you notice when you are immersing yourself in nature, in really thoughtful and contemplative ways. So I'm a really big fan of Animas Valley. And then some of those websites also are certainly somatically based, and some of them trauma informed. Peter Levine is someone who's a real leader in somatic experiencing. Mariah Moser is someone that I'm studying with right now, and Deb Dana also, polyvagal theory. So there's a lot of really rich information to delve deeper.
Okay, and these would all be valuable to people who are trying to connect writing and creativity and
yeah, and just exploration and opening the mind to the mind body, you know, psyche connections.
Okay, beautiful. And just to clarify, when you were on the land for 11 days, you weren't going back to some Tony chalet every night. You're always very modest about your presentation, Pam. You might want to say what you actually had to, where you were for, you know, what you were doing.
Oh,
you were
well, I was lucky enough to be in Capitol Reef Park in Utah, and we were camping. And then there was a fasting component to it, which I remember when I was first found out about this organization, and I talked to a fellow coach who told me about it, and I thought, what, you fasted? That's ridiculous. What do you think? Anyway, there I was fasting, and just, yeah, amazing experience, like hummingbirds all around, and like, you know, like little salamanders in my campsite. And anyway, just, it was a really fantastic experience.
And I would imagine a extraordinary blanket of stars every night as well.
Yeah, just amazing.
Beautiful. Okay, so we're going to, I'm just going to signal Mary Jean as we can turn off the recording soon, and we'll open up the session then to Q&A. For any of you who are watching, we'll be watching this on the web, you'll have those resources you can go to. And meanwhile, if we get a chance, we'll type some of those resources into chat, so those of you who are here can have a chance to revisit them. So Mary Jean, I think we can stop recording, and then we'll just gather together and talk.